Hey everybody. In this video, I want to go over what you should expect for Essay 2 and also essays more generally in our English 101 class this semester. This is information that I would have gone over in our snow day together today. So I'd like you to watch this video, pause it where you need to, and take notes because this information is really important. We'll try to get through it in about 10 to 12 minutes. Okay, so first of all, a really important idea to keep in mind is that academic writing is a conversation. Before you write, you should be paying attention to a conversation that others have started, and then when you write, you're adding your voice to the conversation, showing that you understand it, and also adding your own ideas, insights, and so on. So let's talk about listening. You can't really be a good conversationalist if you're not listening to what others are saying. And so in our class, listening comes in the form of reading articles primarily, maybe watching a video, listening to a podcast. I've made a couple of those available, but mostly it's reading articles written by others. When you do this, there's a scholar named Peter Elbow who talks about playing the believing game, which means making a really good faith effort to understand what someone is saying, setting aside your doubts and your biases temporarily so that you can really get to the heart of what they're saying. Once you've done that and you feel like you have a good understanding of what somebody's saying to you, then you can put on a more critical lens and play the doubting game. Look for where you might find problems or weaknesses or where you might want to add on. Okay, and then comes responding. You've already done a little responding in discussion posts, and you're going to be doing more now. Part of that is using quotations and summary, right? So when you use quotations, paraphrase, and summary in this class, of course, in any class, you're usually doing it to support your claim, right? To show that you know what you're talking about. It also shows that you've been listening, okay? And the way to do that in this class is on page 8 in the syllabus. And then in discussion posts, and especially in your essays this semester, you are adding your voice to the conversation. I'm going to want to know not just what you understand, but how you would add to the conversation. What insights can you bring? Maybe you have personal experiences or examples that you can bring in. What are your thoughts? Okay, so when we look at Essay 2, I just want to review a couple of terms that we've discussed recently. The idea of prescriptivism versus descriptivism. Remember that prescriptivists generally see the language as rule-bound. They're very concerned with correctness and preserving rules. And if you break a rule, if you go outside of a rule, they might call it error or incorrect, right? Descriptivists are much more interested in how language actually is used, how effectively it communicates, and how it evolves. A similar parallel can be found between standard language ideology. Standard language in America is standard edited American English, and the idea that we should all speak this language correctly and properly, versus embracing linguistic variety and all the different dialects and languages we might bring when we come together. Or maybe you can find a middle ground between those two things. But these are some of the concepts that the articles are dealing with in some way or another. Oops. Okay. So in discussions about this, linguists will refer to standard American English or standard American edited English. Sometimes they'll say the language of wider communication. And a couple of the authors we've read refer to white English or will refer to white English. And then there's other Englishes. Some people call this non-standard varieties, but I don't like the non. It sounds too negative. Because this section of English 101 that you chose is oriented on the African American Studies theme. The English that we're focusing on is Black English, or AAVE, African American Vernacular English. The more old-fashioned term is Ebonics. I want you to remember then when we talk about language that we're talking about grammar, accent, and slang. So last week we focused on grammar. Remember that quiz that you took, and we talked about different forms of the is verb. We talked about different inflectional endings at the ends of verbs and nouns. We didn't talk about accent or pronunciation, or what some people colloquially refer to as blaccent when it comes to Black English. And there's also slang, new terms that come out of the language. So much of mainstream American English Standard American English got its language from Black English. One example of a commonly used word now is woke. That came from Black English. It meant something completely different decades ago. And then once it comes into wider usage, sometimes it is distorted and changed. The original meaning has changed. And there's lots of examples of that. So keep those three parts of language in mind. All right, so you've been reading about code switching, right? And I know that the articles provide good definitions of code switching that you might be able to use in your writing if you're interested. I want to look at a couple more definitions of what it is and why we do it. The first one comes from Britannica. The process of shifting from one linguistic code to another, depending upon the context or conversational setting. So we all do this, right? The way that I speak with you is different from how I speak with my kids. The way that I speak with my kids is different from how I speak with my grandmother. So we change the way that we speak depending upon who our audience is, who we're talking to, and where we are. I think everybody's clear on that part. This next definition by McClooney et al. Is interesting because it also looks at why we do it. This definition says, broadly, generally, code switching involves adjusting one's style of speech, appearance, behavior, and expression. So not just speech, but the way that we act in ways that will optimize the comfort of others in exchange for fair treatment, quality service, and employment opportunities. This idea of exchange for fair treatment is a big one. We code switch because we want to be treated fairly that's a big idea here, right? And I think you might remember that in the articles, Wonderful Faison and who's the other? Ida Harris had some concerns about whether that's right. Keep thinking about that. All right, so to keep preparing for Essay 2, keep doing the reading. Get familiar with the conversation. I have put a bunch of recommended articles, a podcast, a video or two on D2L for you so that if you feel like you'd like to learn some more, you can read some of that before you make up your mind about what you want to write about. The best way to develop your confidence in the topic is to read more. So if you're not really sure where you want to go with this essay, my first bit of advice will always be to read some more, okay? Discussion posts, both posting and reading the posts are going to help you get familiar with the conversation and develop your own ideas. You can build on the ideas you've already written in your discussion posts. For a couple of you, I replied that you already seem to have a good thesis statement if you want to develop that idea more. You don't have to develop your discussion posts into this essay, but you have that option. And then the next thing you'll be doing is reading a sample essay. I'll have a little video about that. I'm going to have you submit a plan for your essay, a brief description of where you plan to go, or an outline if you like to outline. Nothing super detailed, just a general sense of direction. And then you'll be doing a half draft before the essay is due, and we'll do peer workshops on that. So you can see there's lots of steps leading up to this essay, and you'll be getting feedback along the way. So that you know that you're headed in the right direction. Okay, so let's take a look at the assignment. I'm going to go into D2L. This is our homepage. There's a link here. There are also links in the weekly overview when you go to weekly content. I'm looking here right now under major assignments, and I'm going to click on the link for Essay 2. I don't want to read all of this to you, so please read it more carefully on your own time. I just want to highlight some things for you. So the assignment is to write an essay that responds to the materials assigned or recommended so far. Okay, so again, you're joining into a conversation, you're adding a voice to the conversation. I would like you to use at least one quotation. I'm sorry about my typo there. You must use at least one quotation from the readings or videos to support your ideas. You can use more, but don't let the quotations overwhelm your ideas. And you may definitely use personal experience. You may use personal pronouns I if relevant. Okay. Again, I encourage you to look at recommended resources on D2L. These 5 topics I've given you here, these first 5, all were just ideas for topics I had when I was doing the reading. Okay, some of them are kind of similar, so you can take a look at these different possibilities, but there's also, if none of those is really, hitting you, you could just come up with your own topic that responds to the assigned readings in some way, and email me by 5 o'clock on Monday to get my approval on the topic. Again, if you are engaging in some way with the ideas in the readings, you should be good. All right, here again is a list of the steps that we're completing, okay? And these will all help you lead up to the final essay due on the 15th. Okay, more on those later. I want to call your attention to the rubric at the back of the assignment. You might remember that in this class, if you meet all the expectations, you'll get full credit. If you don't meet an expectation or more, you'll get partial credit. So in the middle column are the basic expectations for this assignment. If you want to go for what would normally be an A, if you want to do top-notch work, on the left column is what an exceeding expectations essay would look like. And if you don't meet expectations, your essay might have one or more of the characteristics in the right-hand column. So look at these categories here: thesis, focus, and development. You should have a thesis, a specific point that you want to make. You should stay focused on it, and you should have sufficient details to back it up. You should have good paragraph and essay level structure. I want to emphasize that you do not need to stick to that repetitive 5-paragraph formula that you learned in elementary school or middle school, where you're listing your topic sentences in the intro, and each intro starts with it, or each paragraph starts with a topic sentence, and then you repeat them all in the conclusion. That's really boring for college readers, so I encourage you to use a structure that works for you. If you need 6 paragraphs, if you need 7 paragraphs, let the content you have determine what you how many paragraphs you need. The source use is, again, at least one quotation from the readings. Cite it correctly. Don't plagiarize. Put quoted words in quotation marks. You've already read the syllabus about that. And then make sure that you're proofreading clearly. Notice how for sentence level conventions, instead of emphasizing correctness, I'm emphasizing effective rhetorical choices. Are you making the right kinds of choices for your purpose to reach your audience? And are the sentences understandable? Have you demonstrated attention to proofreading? Okay, the length for this one is 750 words. That's indicated up above somewhere. Oh, maybe it isn't. I'll have to add that. 750 words for this essay. Okay. If you have any questions about any of this, please feel free to reach out. You can make an appointment. I will want to conference with you about your draft so I can give you feedback and tell you how great you're doing. Okay. Take care, and I will see you soon.